Well, 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 look who it is. It's the last day of the year, and we are still here, me and you, again. Not that there is much else to do. I am being barred inside my own home by the police, forced to stay inside because of this pandemic, so not many other options other than chilling inside and watching YouTube videos. So, how has this year been for you? No, I'm kidding, I don't care. In this video today, we're gonna look at the New Year's resolution people do this time of the year. We're gonna look at them with the lenses focused on World of Warcraft and what do we want to improve in the expansion? What do we think hasn't been up to par? What do we think can improve in this upcoming year very soon? I mean, if you want to share your deepest, darkest secrets about what you want to do in 2021, go ahead. Don't bother saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna lose weight. I'm gonna hit the gym. You can't hit the gym. You're locked inside. You're gonna spend all day in front of the PC getting fatter. We already know this. Let's not just lie to ourselves. So, we were saying World of Warcraft. What's been going on now and what do we want to improve later on? How about we start with Torghast? So, Torghast started in the beta very hyped as a solo content for players. A lot of people, were excited at the idea. A lot of people recalled something like the Mage Tower Challenge from Legion. Lots of praise in the beta about this type of system, and then the game launches, people start doing Torghast, and as we get higher in floors, it becomes apparent that not only is it very relying on your own item level, meaning, the more competitive players would have gotten a much easier time than the more casual ones, but also it was also different and more difficult for certain specs. The Torghast runs were not really tuned for certain characters like melee DPS, and it was easier for other characters like healers and tanks. Characters with pets were having a disproportionately easier time than characters that didn't. So Blizzard started fixing this. Now Torghast has been made much easier. It is much easier for anyone, regardless of your gear, to get to the last floor and complete the entirety of Torghast. So what do we want for the next year? Because by this point, of course, there are people still lagging a little bit behind, but more or less, everyone is able to do a floor 8 of Torghast right now. Everyone has gotten their legendaries from Torghast. The Soul Ash, therefore, is rolling in the background, and people are starting their tier 3, tier 4 crafting of their legendaries, even multiple legendaries by now. So what do we want to see for Torghast? Because right now the use of Torghast is going to become very obsolete in just a few weeks. As I said, there is a limited amount of legendaries you want to be crafting for your spec, even for your class. As a shaman myself, even if I wanted to play Restoration as well, I literally would need probably 4 more weeks of Torghast before I could have like 3 different tier 4 legendaries I wanted. And then that's it. No more Torghast. Similar for my druid. Of course, what we need to see from Torghast is a way for it to become relevant, to continue being relevant throughout the expansion, because right now its relevance, it's dwindling, it's fading quickly. So I think Blizzard will have to inevitably tie more player power around Torghast pretty soon. Obviously, we can predict this and say that with the next patch, with the next content patch, be it a raid or a mini raid, a smaller raid like Crucible of Storms, but they do have to add something to update Torghast, maybe in the floors, going all the way up to floor 12 or floor 14, upgrading, of course, the ranks of your legendaries. So basically, you have to continue scaling up the requirements of you to enter Torghast and to clear Torghast every week. I still am a little bit sad that the infinite Torghast isn't quite as infinite and isn't quite as challenging anymore, as well as the rewards having been toned down. I wish they kept that, real hardcore part about this roguelike endless dungeon thing, still a thing, basically. But we have to see what they're going to be doing with Torghast, because as I said, right now it's kind of losing its value. For me, not that I mind, it's just that we saw how Torghast has been pushed as a primary part of the expansion, as a main activity in the expansion, and it seems pretty weird to make it fade in importance so early, right? Talking about fading in importance, we have to move from Torghast to the Maw. Now this one is a weird one, because the Maw wasn't, if we want to be honest, as advertised as Torghast, right? It wasn't really made to be a crucial focal part of the entire expansion. But that being said, the MO is currently, if possible, even more fading from the priority of players than Torghast, right? You might have noticed there is way less people grinding and farming rares nowadays. Lots of people have gotten to Exalted, to Appreciative with Venari. Lots of people have gotten their 4, 5, 6 sockets already with Venari. And because of how little loot you're getting, these people are set for quite a few weeks with those sockets. So the push, the necessity, the drive to go down in the MO every day and farm Stygia and Reputation is now gone. If we consider, roughly, that the next tier is going to come out in something like 3 months, that's a long time that you can wait, weekly quests from Venari, stockpile your Stygia, keep them for your sockets for the next tier, and then you're set. So I do feel like Blizzard is going to have to do something with them all. As I mentioned before, in the beta, the Beast Warrens was like a dead zone with nothing to do, and it has remained a dead zone with nothing to do. You basically only ever go there for the hunt once a week, and then you just leave, because all the rares are clumped either on the top side of the MO or in Perdition Hold. You just stay out of the MO. There's just a couple of rares, too spread, too long to actually get there from the rest of the zones, so nobody cares. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do with the MO, because right now, there is no reason to go there anymore. You got your Exalted, you have had stockpiled 30, 40,000 Stygia, and with the rate in which you're getting gear, you don't need to constantly be farming Stygia to constantly upgrade new gear with sockets. So I'm interested, because if you guys haven't noticed from the map is now fully unlocked. There's like no secret little region we haven't visited yet in the MO, which was what was thought before. Oh, we only are in the top part of the MO because the next parts are going to be unlocked in the next tier of the expansion and then in the next tier. But no, we got the entirety of the MO just a few weeks in, and now it's kind of empty of things to do. So another New Year's resolution for the game, another wish for the game, is to, again, make something of the MO, because its usefulness as of right now has dwindled a lot, even more than Torghast, so we need to find a way to keep it alive. Again, I'm perfectly fine with letting the MO die, but I'm just trying to look at this from Blizzard's perspective. That would be a pretty dumb developing decision to make the entire region of the MO and then make it become useless in just a month, right? Well, we have had a lot of praise for Castonatria as a raid, as encounters, as aesthetics and art style, as usual. The art team and even the raiding development team, top-notch, very good, excellent. Many people have manifested their appreciation for Castonatria as one of the better raids they have done. For me, as I said myself, the best of the first raids of the expansion that I've seen. So, great job. Continue going on this same pattern. I also think the bosses, when it comes to being relevant, being good for certain specs, are also nicely done. We do have, some specs overshadowing others, but not that badly. I think the only outlier right now is Unholy Death Knight and Marksmanship Hunter. As I mentioned multiple times, Balanced Druid and Convoke the Spirits is only really problematic during pure single target fights and not much else. And then you have the real problems being Unholy and Marksmanship and their ability to burst, as well as AoE burst way too effectively. But beyond that, I think it's a pretty nicely diverse raid. On a similar note, when it comes to dungeons, one of the wishes of many people in BFA was to stop the dominance of things like Resto Druid, of things like Protection Warrior first, and Blood Decay before that as well, and even of Havoc Demon Hunters, being able to do everything, have too many tools and be way too strong, and even rogues and their use of Shroud. Now, to be honest, we did get a lot of this. Restoration Druid is nowhere near as dominant. Protection Warrior, of course, has lost tons of powers from BFA and is now pretty poor. Blood Death Knight is no longer the to-go tank. It hasn't been for a while as well. And Havoc Demon Hunter has dropped significantly in play rates. Even technically, even Rogue, given the absolute near 40% representation they had in BFA. They are still one of the better melee that is being brought to Mythic Plus, but nowhere near the amount of popularity they had before. So when it comes to the composition of Mythic Plus, we have gotten much better than previous expansions. We have gone leaps and bounds above. We do know that sooner or later in this next tier, or the one after that, depending on how big Blizzard is making the next raid, it could be something like Trial of Valor from Legion, so a small one, before the big one like Nighthold, or it could be the opposite. We could get a Battle of the Zara lore big raid followed by a small raid like Crucible of Storms, or maybe neither, maybe something different, we don't know. As I mentioned before, I think all the dungeons are very cool compared to their previous expansions. Remember things like King's Rest, things like Shrine of the Storm, these type of dungeons. I don't have a dungeon as bad as those in Shadowlands on my list. In terms of annoyance, I have Plagueful, but not in terms of difficulty. And in terms of difficulty, probably also Necrotic Wake, but at least Necrotic Wake has the benefit of being much shorter and not as difficult when you switch from Tyrannical to Fortified, whereas these type of dungeons, Shrine and King's Rest, were cancerous in both affixes. I've seen a lot of people wishing for something to be done about Tyrannical, because it doesn't add enough to a key other than just mega buffing the bosses and, more importantly, just making boss fights longer. It would have been better if, for example, you enhanced the boss battles the same way you would enhance a boss from Heroic Raid to Mythic Raid. So basically give them more mechanics, give them harder things to do in the encounter rather than just making it 2 minutes longer with the exact same mechanics. I would be okay with that, actually. Or even cool things like adding adds to a fight or adding phases to a fight. I think it would just be more flavorful than just the typical lazy bullet sponge answer developers have in their games, you know? When you go from hard to very hard to insane to madness difficulties, and all it changes is that the enemies have 10 times the HP and do 10 times the damage, and that's it. It's a little bit lazy. The other wish is to think a little bit about melee DPS in keys right now. I think with Storming and Spiteful being added, that's really harsh on melee DPS. Because Inspiring is bad for everyone. It's not really particularly bad for melee. But Storming and Spiteful are really bad for melee, and I know maybe Blizzard took a look at the previous expansion and they saw basically every single group being dominated by a Havoc and a Rogue. They wanted to get rid of this necessity of bringing melee DPS, maybe because of interrupts and because of the utility they had between CC, soft CC, hard CC, and similar other things. However, I think this is a little bit too much. It would probably be a good answer when it comes for Spiteful to make the ghosts appear spawn in a random direction around players, just so it could also affect range DPS the same as they affect melee DPS. It would be worse overall, because it also removes a skill component from your run, being able to do things like pulling the pack back, so the Spitefuls are going to spawn in the back, so you can keep running forward with your trash pulls, as the Spiteful spawns are going to chase you. It's going to lose some skill element from the affix, but it's going to make it easier for melee DPS. Less annoying for melee DPS at least. That would be my wish for Mythic Plus. Not much to wish, as I mentioned, for raids, because I think they are going fine as it is. My last wish for next year is for Blizzard to look a little bit more on the way they are planning their itemization and gearing up system for players. So I myself, for example, am 214 item level. So you're going to be saying, oh wow, why are you complaining about gear? You're like 214, that's like super high. But you have to look at it from the perspective of a Mythic Raider, right? 214 is amongst the like average to below average actually. Why? Because now the best way, actually the most certain way for a Mythic Raider to gear up is to do PvP and get at least 220 item level rewards. Right now, the higher item level PvEers are reaching 220 item level because they have gotten 4 to 5 220 pieces from PvP. And this is a bad system because normally a Mythic Raider would not need to do PvP and would not need to start begging for PvP gear to get stronger for PvE content. So I was okay with the removal of loot from Mythic Plus, I was okay with the removal of loot in raids, and I was okay with the removal of item level from Mythic Plus to be lower than Heroic. And I was okay with the removal of extra coin rolls with the addition of a better weekly cache in the form of the Great Vault over the previous cache. The problem is, I wasn't okay with all these things being put into the game at once. Particularly the combo of removing item level from Mythic Plus while also lowering the drop rates as well as reducing the amount of loot from raids. This has made it very, very scarce to get loot. I have gone through 4 full weeks, 4 full clears of heroic raiding, 40 kills, and I have looted 5 items, 3 of which I traded away because I didn't need. Actually, the best place for me to get loot has been the auction house, either through my guild and the BOEs or myself buying BOEs. And I think that's kind of wrong. If you have killed that many heroic bosses, 40, 4 full clears, you should be already at a level where you don't need to start getting PvP gear to get better. I think that they need to do something about this for the next year. They need to look a little bit at how you can gear, because this is a little bit too slow. My opinion was that they should have just made gearing up in Mythic Plus a little bit easier by adding extra item level for extra keys. I know they want to stop at a difficulty they think is obtainable by the majority of the player base without making the rest of the player base feel like they are missing out, feel like they are not good enough. So they don't want to say that the item level cap in Mythic Plus is going to be a plus 20 or a plus 25 because it's going to make people sad. But frankly, I don't give a shit about other people, so I think they should have just gone from 210 from a plus 15 and then bring it up to something like 216 from a plus 20 or even 219. It doesn't even have to be repeatable. They could have even put on it like a 3 item cap. So every week you can get 3 items from Mythic Plus at that level if you can do a plus 20. It's still less than 1% of the player base. It still wouldn't affect the majority of people. Just reward those people that can push that high up. So yeah, for the next year, the resolution regarding gear is that it is made a little bit smoother to gear up. And try to not make competitive people who want to push earlier on the content, going for BOEs and PvP all the time because they can't literally cannot get the gear from the activity, the content they are doing. So this was all for my wishes, of course, because I am more about PvE, more about dungeons, raids, gear and whatnot. Maybe your wishes are going to be related to more pet battles, better professions, as professions this expansion have been terrible. So let me know. If you want, let me know your personal wishes and resolutions for the next year. We know. You're just saying them to make yourself feel better about the future, when we all know that in reality you are doomed, destined to fail. But still, I will humor you and listen to your wishes. So, see you guys soon. I'm not gonna say see you guys next year. That's cringe. See you guys soon. Probably not tomorrow, I think. I'm gonna be busy, forcefully, against my will. Happy New Year. Have a good day, a good first of the year, a good time with your family, wherever you are. I'm gonna leave. I have to go and visit my aunt. She's 93, by the way. Good for her. And in the meantime, I need a catchphrase. I can't come up with something new every time.